Good morning, Delaware, and welcome to Off the Shelf. We're glad to have you here. We are doing our show again from the undisclosed location, our bunkers that we have hunkered down in for the duration. And we are delighted today to have as our guest Michelle Francis, the Executive Director of the Ohio Library Council. It's great to have you here, Michelle. How you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, George, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you all and your listeners.
Thanks very much for being here. And Nicole, it's great to have you here. How you doing?
Well, I'm hanging in there. We've still got 4 alive in my household, and it's going well.
That's good. I mean, it just goes to show what can happen when you hide all the weapons.
Yeah, well, and I always have to banish people from the bunker before I start the show. I'm like, get out of here. Calling on my husband, like, will you take charge of these children, please?
And of course, we got Gage Tellis at the board. Thank you so much for pulling us all together, Gage.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And let me also thank the Friends of the Library, who are the sponsor of this show, and without whom we would not be here on the air. So thank you, Friends of the Library. We had a Friends of the Library board meeting on Wednesday night, and they're busy planning what they're going to do after this all comes to a close. So we really do appreciate everything they do for the library. So anyway, I know it's been crazy, but Nicole, what have you been reading?
Well, actually, I have something this week, and it was something that I checked out prior to the closure announcements. And so with my luck, now I get to have it for like 3 months. So how nice for me. So prior to all of this, in February, I had a birthday, and my lovely in-law and my parents sent me some birthday cash, and I was considering buying an Instant Pot with my birthday money. And I just wasn't sure if it was worth it. I had heard so many people say it's amazing and life-changing. And so I checked out the book called How to Instant Pot by Daniel Shumsky, who is also the same author of another book called Will It Skillet. I love the title of that book, Will It Skillet. Oh my gosh, it's just so funny. And so How to Instant Pot, mastering all the functions of the one pot that will change the way you cook. I didn't know anything about an Instant Pot. All I knew is that it was kind of like a slow cooker, so like a fast cooker. I've heard people say that they've taken, frozen chicken breasts, put it in their Instant Pot. 15 minutes later, they get, cooked chicken. And I'm like, well, that's amazing, because one of the problems, we like to do freezer meals, and then you have to take the freezer meal, you have to defrost it overnight. And then if you put it in a crock pot, then it's cooking for another 8 hours. And if you've forgotten about that freezer meal and you haven't defrosted, or you haven't put it anywhere that it needs to go to not be frozen anymore, you've lost 12 hours. You're 12 hours behind on the game. So that was the one thing that made me consider the Instant Pot. But I got this book, I look at it, it talks about the basics, and then it talks about all the things that an Instant Pot does. I mean, this sounds like an ad for it, but this is why books like this are super helpful, because they help you make these consumer decisions before you shell out a lot of cash and maybe wasted money or wasted time. But let me tell you, not only is it a pressure cooker, a slow cooker, a rice maker, it makes yogurt. Like, if you just save 1 spoonful of yogurt that is from like an active, like live culture, from something that you bought from the store, if you save that 1 little spoonful, then this thing will help you make more yogurt just like on demand. It'll reculture the yeast. It'll do everything that it needs to do. Amazing. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So
like grow hair.
Yeah. I don't know, George. You might think so. So it's kind of got me convinced. But prior to coming on air today, Michelle and Gage were both sharing that they know a little bit about the Instant Pot. So I want to hear what you know about it too.
Well,
okay. Michelle,
you're on. Go.
Yeah.
So we have an Instapot, and my husband will kill me for saying this, but literally we've had it since Christmas, and it is still sitting in the box in our basement. And I think he started to use it as an end table. So,
it's great for tables.
Yeah, there you go. So I want to use it. I saw all the recipes, wonderful things, although I didn't know about this whole yogurt thing, Nicole. Right? So that's news to me. So that may make me open it up. But we do have an air fryer, and we use that every single day with kids, we do chicken nuggets, we do French fries, we do asparagus. I can cook salmon in 7 minutes.
That's awesome.
I mean,
and it's
out of the freezer
flaky and perfect, just the way salmon should be.
So
wait a minute, 7 minutes out of the freezer?
Well, actually not out of the freezer. Let me rephrase that. I do thaw it for like maybe an hour or two or try to throw it in there, but it doesn't take that long. I mean, honestly, the chicken nuggets take 10 minutes out of the freezer. So, and when you've got hungry kids, you will do whatever you have to do to appease them.
Right?
So,
we spend an hour to make dinner, and then and that's for my husband and I. And then by the time we're done, then we're like, oh yeah, what are we feeding the kids? Super picky.
Well, I was going to say they never eat what we eat, right?
No.
So true.
My kids won't touch the salmon.
If we didn't eat what my parents had made us, we didn't eat.
I tried that road; it didn't work.
That was a different generation. What can I say? But Gage, you had some thoughts on this this whole Instant Pot thing too.
Yeah, well, I'm not a big fan, to be honest, guys, and that's because my father likes to use Instant Pot during dinner time, and it might be just because the way he makes it. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of it. Whatever comes out of there, I'm not a huge fan of.
Maybe it means that you can still be a bad cook. Like, it doesn't make you a good cook. You're still you're just a bad cook with an Instant Pot now. So
well, my father's a great cooker, but I'm just not a fan of the Instant Pot. I don't know why.
Well, has this helped you make up your mind, Nicole?
Well, so there are different levels of what you can buy, and it does explain that in the book. You can buy like the one that just has the base level, or you can buy the one that has like all the gadgets. And then of course there are different inserts that you can put in it too, like the hard-boiled egg insert, or just the cake insert. Different things like that. So there are different ways that you could buy into the phenomenon, and so I think I would give it a try on a base level. But so yeah, we've got Michelle and Gage's review, and then we've got Daniel Shumsky's How to Instant Pot. So that is, one of the great things that the library has for you, is to just figure things out before you spend your money.
My dad will definitely buy that book.
Well, I have been for the last week not really doing a lot of reading, but I'll tell you what Joyce and I did. We got really interested in this comedy series that I can't say the name of on radio. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to call it Spitz Creek. Okay, like Mark Spitz. Okay. And I watched the first season. We binged that over a night and a half, and I was not all that impressed. But Joyce loved it, so we started watching season 2. Season 2 sold it to me. I don't know if you're not familiar with it. It's about a family of 4 people, a husband who was the owner of a video company, and then his wife, who was a longtime soap opera queen, and their 2 adult children who are suddenly bankrupt because their business manager has embezzled everything they had, except for this one small town, which they bought as a joke. So now they're living in this small town in a motel that looks like something on US 40 just outside of West Jefferson. And it's their time in this town, and the characters that live in the town. If you like the kind of show like Northern Exposure or things like that, you will love this show. Eugene Levy, who was and Catherine O'Hara, who were with Second City for many years and have done all sorts of wonderful movies with Christopher Guest, star as the parents. And Eugene Levy's son, David Levy, is the son, and then there's the daughter is played by an actress named Annie Murphy, who I'd never seen before, but is wonderful in the show. We've watched 5 seasons. There's a 6th season that isn't available on Netflix yet, which is the final season of the series. And I have to tell you, the character development around the town, the people that they come into contact with, make this series so funny. They get so involved in the community. The father ends up helping to run the motel. The mother gets elected to the town council. And I'm not doing any spoilers because most of that's in season 2. By season 5, they are fully rounded characters, and you are actually rooting for them to succeed. Whereas at the beginning, I thought I wouldn't want to take a airplane ride with these people, from Columbus to Chicago. let alone, spend all these weeks with them. But the show is so well written, so funny, and the characters are so well drawn that you just get sucked right into it. So we actually finished binging the rest of the show in about 3 days, I think. It was like,
wow,
let's finish dinner so we can watch Spitz Creek.
Yeah. George, I've heard the same comment as you, that people have said that it's the funniest show that they've ever seen, but you've got to give it more than like the first 3 episodes. They said that, and that's a pretty common comment that I've heard.
Yeah, and like I binged on the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel when I was home with my knee surgery,
Right.
which had me hooked like from the opening credits.
Right.
Which is a lot different than this one, but I really can't recommend this one enough. We watched the first season on Hulu station, and they break for commercials. And I kept thinking, I got to be able to find this somewhere else. And then I found it on Netflix, where the language is not censored. So you might not want to watch it with an 8-year-old, but there's really nothing untoward in it otherwise. But it's just a very, very human series.
Who's the original producing network behind it? Was it HBO?
It was the CBC, actually, the Canadian Broadcasting Company created it. It was originally shown in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but it's like I said, it's really worth it. It's on Netflix. Find it, enjoy it. You'll absolutely love it. So, okay, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how Ohio public libraries have been reacting to the coronavirus and COVID-19 crisis, and how we can help you succeed in this crisis. So stay tuned.
Go ahead.
Okay. Welcome back to Off the Shelf. We're here with Michelle Francis, the Executive Director of the Ohio Library Council. Welcome again, Michelle. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Now, I know because I'm a public library director and I helped fill out the survey, but the council just released the results of a survey that you did on what public libraries are doing during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what were some of the key findings that you have been released now?
So, well, what we did, George, we knew, obviously for a couple of weeks now, as soon as we started to have community spread in the state of Ohio, our libraries, we know we have the highest use per capita in the nation. So we knew right away that crowds were going to be gathering in libraries. And we wanted to address that. We wanted to make sure that we weren't contributing to the issue and to the spreading the virus. So libraries shut their doors, which was a very, very tough decision, I think, for many of you all and many of our libraries to make.
It sure was.
But at the same time, we knew that library customers and patrons all across the state still needed access to books, still needed access to connectivity, to Wi-Fi and all of these other things. And so it's just amazing. Our public libraries across the state really stepped up and went above and beyond. And we started to hear these stories from all across the state. And I love getting those emails and I love getting those text messages about all the wonderful things that libraries are doing to serve their local communities and their neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And so as an organization, what we decided to do, we wanted to collect this information to be able to share that story. And so we did conduct a survey from April 6th through April 14th. And we did release the survey results yesterday. Some of the key findings, obviously, right off the top, public Wi-Fi. And, in today's world, we know that broadband connectivity and access to the internet, it's a basic utility. I mean, people have to have access. And, if nothing else, one of the things that we've seen as a result of this pandemic is where that digital divide exists. Right. And so our libraries stepped up. Many immediately started looking at boosting their Wi-Fi to make sure that people in their parking lots could have access. Still observe social distancing, staying in your cars, making sure that we're not congregating in parking lots, but also making sure that kids can still get their homework. Because remember, school buildings are closed, right? I mean, trust me, I'm at home with my kids and they're getting online several times a day to do Google Meets and everything else. And so we need to make sure that we're continuing that access. The majority, 99% of the libraries across the state, majority are keeping it on 24/7. Now, there are some who are turning it off from midnight to 6 a.m., and I love this because I already got a call from a reporter and they said, who's the one library that's turning it off? And I said, well, it's not necessarily that they're turning it off. We asked the question, are you keeping it on 24/7? And, for security reasons, there are some libraries that do turn it off from midnight to 6 a.m., which makes sense. But the libraries the Wi-Fi is on, and they're boosting it, and they're making sure that people have access to it so that people can still take online courses, kids can finish their homework. People can connect with their families that they're not able to have connections with, and they may not have access at home. They can go in the parking lot with their phone and get on Wi-Fi and still have connections with their families. And to me, that was the biggest response in the survey that we saw. Some of the other big ones, obviously, expanding online checkout services for ebooks and audiobooks. That we've seen a huge boost in that. Streaming of videos and music, that all of that digital content. That was another key area that we saw. Another key area, obviously, online courses through LinkedIn Learning, which formerly lynda.com, Gale courses, other access to databases. Those were some of the key takeaways that we saw. Some of the really interesting pieces to me that I think was very helpful, and I think will help to tell the story. Some of our libraries today have maker spaces, have tech zones, whatever you want to call them. And many of them are partnering with schools and with others to make PPE, personal protective equipment, for our first responders and for others, because that's really something I think as we move forward in this new normal that we're going to be living in, that everybody tunes in every afternoon at 2:00 to hear what Governor DeWine and Dr. Acton have to say. And so I think for me, that was one of the key takeaways that just really made me so proud of our libraries.
And I have to say, we're one of those libraries of the 25 that responded to the survey. So I'm awful proud of Kellen and Tracy and the folks in our Maker Annex who made that happen here too. So I thought that was just a great way of kind of doing a shift to show the service to the community and get involved as much as we could, as quickly as we could.
Well, and I think it makes a difference. I mean, on a personal note, my husband's a first responder. So I see the equipment that they have to protect them. And, libraries are so used to being a part of the community and contributing. And this is a way to continue that. Even though our doors are closed, there are still things that we can do for our local communities. One of the other really heartwarming stories that we heard anecdotally and got through the survey, some of our libraries are providing iPads to their nursing homes because we have seniors and others that can't have access to their families. And in some of these cases may not have a phone or a tablet. Several of them are loaning those tablets to the nursing homes in large numbers so that those individuals who are there can still not only get online books, because they normally got outreach services from the library. Normally there were book drops or deliveries, but now they can get online materials and they can communicate with their family members. And so those connections are what's going to be so important as we move forward through this. So those were just a few of the pieces that just really made me just so incredibly proud of our libraries.
I love the story that came out of Muskingum Public Library System, where they are actually using, I drive through, my family lives in Tuscarawas County, and so I drive from here in Delaware County to Tuscarawas County, and I drive through that Muskingum County area, and that's one of the big places with the digital divide, and the radio is one of the primary ways that people get their news, and so that public library system is using the radio stations area to read bedtime stories to the families, which I just think was brilliant. And also, when everything's said and done, I bet radio is still going to be there, right, Gage?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yes. I loved it because it reminded me, I'm kind of a history buff, and I was like, oh, this is fireside chats all over again. So, I just, I don't know, it was just one of those things that Again, it just amazed me because there are some people who don't have access. Many libraries like you all are doing virtual story time,
Right.
and through Facebook and other ways, and there are still some communities that don't have access to that. So how do you reach them? We've had great partners with our radio stations. In Muskingum is doing that, as well as Mercer County Public Library up in Northwest Ohio. Yeah. So we're just happy.
We always knew we had at least one performer in Mr. George, but we're discovering we've got multiple good on-screen performers for doing these online story times. Miss Hillary and Miss Bridget have just been kind of knocking them away.
Miss Jenny and Miss Lori, and I don't think I've posted it yet, but one of Miss Jenny's most recent videos that she sent me to get up online, she's playing a ukulele, and she has a gorgeous voice. I was like, oh my gosh, so many of we've got our own little Delaware's Got Talent team.
I love it.
Well, the American Library Association also did a survey nationally between March 24th and April 1st, and I think we're seeing, and I hate that, yes, Ohio Public Libraries have always been kind of front runners in the public library service. Like we're doing, I think a lot of the things that they discovered other libraries were doing around the country, but more of us are doing it a higher percentage, doing things like more of the activities to do at home. Powell Branch, before we closed, they had this program they're going to do marshmallow engineering with marshmallows and toothpicks and stuff. And because they couldn't do the program live, they packed the stuff up into bags and handed it to the families who were going to come so they could do it at home instead. And I've seen that there are smaller percentages in other states doing those kinds of things with the activities to do at home, or unemployment resources like we talked about last week on the show, and other kinds of services. I've seen in talking to the other library directors in the Central Library Consortium and another group that we have here in the state, incredible creativity in how people are handling things. When you talk about the Wi-Fi service, some of the libraries actually moved their Wi-Fi ports closer to the front door because the signal wasn't strong enough, and that way they could get more people on and more people could actually have good solid connections. So things like that just really impress me. I think it's really incredible how people have just, as I said last week again, it's so many creative ideas that have come out and so much willingness to change old models quickly to match the new realities. We added a chat feature with it. Nicole did this on our website within a day or two of the closing, where I probably would have had a fight with the staff for a month to get that done.
They would have wanted to test it and set up a schedule, and I was like, nope, it's there.
No, after this, they'll never want to go back now because they're really enjoying using it. So it's like, what was it Rahm Emanuel used to say? A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So it's giving us a chance to do some of these things. So I really appreciate the support that we've gotten from the Ohio Library Council. I know that's why Lieutenant Governor Husted started one of the Governor DeWine started one of the presentations, one of his pressers, with what the library's doing. So I thought that was, I kind of feeling you had a hand in that. So we really appreciate it to be recognized that way. So
this is perfect timing, George, because you know what next week is, right?
Oh yeah, yes.
National Library Week.
Yes. So, and I think we're once again demonstrating why it's important to have libraries. And I know we're going to come back with libraries when this is all over, but I think we're going to see some real change in what we do and how we do it, even if it's for the next year when we have to be perhaps more cognizant of hygiene and personal space and things like that. But I also think we're learning, and just the way universities and K through 12 schools and businesses are learning what they can do and what they can't do technologically. So all I know is I want to get back in a room with my fellow managers and just be able to throw things back and forth instead of doing it on Zoom. So
honestly, how many Zoom meetings do we all have a day now at this point? Do you think?
I don't even want to think. I had 4 yesterday.
4, wow.
Well, actually, this gives me a good chance to plug the fact that next Tuesday would have been our regularly scheduled in-person library board meeting on April 21st. We are going to do it on Zoom and then connect it to Facebook Live so that people can participate, view the meeting. They can do commentary. We're going to have somebody from communications fielding the questions and making sure we have the board will be aware of the questions that are being asked. So we will have the information about that out on our website, and we'll be sending it to the Gazette so we can make sure that everybody knows how to get onto that meeting. So I appreciate the fact that the legislature gave us that opportunity, because trying to do it with proper social distancing would have been impossible. So anyway, Michelle, thank you so much for being our guest today. Thank you for everything you do for Ohio's public libraries.
Well, thank you all so much for the invitation. I always appreciate and always like to come on the show, and it's always so nice. And again, you guys, you and Nicole, and you all do the work. I just get to enjoy it. So thank you.
Well, we really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Nicole. Keep those knives hidden and everything. Okay. So.
Knives are away.
And Gage, as always, a pleasure working with you. Thanks for setting this all up.
Absolutely.
And, we will see you online.